Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Youth AI Talk. We are all very excited to have you here. Before introducing today's talk, I would like to give a brief overview of the Youth AI speaker series because we have quite a few new audience members here. For those who are new to Youth AI Lab and what we do, we are a youth-led nonprofit U.S. organization dedicated to increasing student to expert connections, AI literacy, and making high school students future ready. This webinar is a part of our monthly speaker series. To raise awareness of AI among all communities, we invite experts from academia and industry to share their knowledge and discovery in specific areas of AI. Unlike other technical talks, these talks will be tailored to people without much background in AI. Therefore, they are fun to listen to and easy to follow. We hope that by listening to these talks regularly, you will gain a solid knowledge of AI. Please help spread the word about Youth AI Talk. And thank you for your support of this education and community service initiative. Please also consider visiting our website, youthai.org, should be in the chat, and sign up to receive announcements for other upcoming events like this one and other resources. For those who miss our talks, feel free to also read the webinar summary that'll be released after the talk. So far, we have hosted 21 fantastic talks since the kickoff of the Youth AI Speaker Series and have just kicked off our inaugural Youth Speaker Series talk last March. So if you want to keep up to date with any upcoming talks or events, you can follow us on social media, Eventbrite, or register on our website at youthai.org. Our speaker series covers important areas of AI, such as efficient AI, graphics AI, cognitive AI, finance AI, as well as different implications of AI. Our speakers are held in high regard in their respective fields, whether it be academia or industry. We have speakers from big players in industry such as Facebook, Microsoft, and speakers from top AI universities such as Carnegie Mellon, MIT, UC Berkeley, and Stanford. Replays of these talks are mostly available on the Youth AI YouTube channel, with the exception of a couple talks, which are not available on YouTube due to company policy. Our last talk marked the inaugural kickoff of our new Youth Speaker Series, which are cutting-edge AI-centric talks given by young AI pioneers who have made important impacts at the beginning of their career. We want to give our audience the opportunity to learn about the journey of young AI pioneers and gain valuable insight and inspiration of others into what a career in AI might look like for you. For the start of this exciting series, we are honored to have Dr. Yang Song, a research scientist at OpenAI and an incoming assistant professor at Caltech, discuss diffusion models for generative AI and their growing impact in pushing the boundaries of AI. You're welcome to watch the replay of this great talk at our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/youthAIlab.
Our next upcoming talk, which will be a youth speaker series talk, is yet to be determined. So if you don't want to miss any updates on the second highlighted youth speaker in our new speaker series, we suggest becoming a member on our website and following our Eventbrite to not miss any important information. Both links which should be in the chat around now, in case you are interested in keeping up to date with our future events. And before introducing Mr. Tobias Reiter, I'd like to briefly go over the logistics of this talk. Because we have audience watching from our YouTube live stream as well as on Zoom, we'll be doing Q&A through a platform called Slido. So you can either go to the URL, which will be put in the chat, or you can go to Slido and enter event code 12360. And you can feel free to submit questions throughout the talk, but we'll only be answering questions in a Q&A session at the end of Mr. Reiter's talk. So be sure to stick around for that. Now, let me introduce today's speaker, Mr. Tobias Reiter. Mr. Tobias Reiter is a serial social entrepreneur with extensive experience in AI technology, finance, and consulting. He is the co-founder and CEO of Viebeg, a Rwanda and Silicon Valley-based health AI tech company that focuses on expanding access to healthcare in Africa by tackling the problem with the medical supply chain. Viebeg currently serves 750 plus healthcare providers in Kenya, Rwanda, and DRC, and has been awarded 1 million from the prestigious Rwanda Innovation Fund. Mr. Reiter and Viebeg's story has been featured in Austria's leading news magazine, Profil, and Mr. Reiter's entrepreneurial journey began while still in college, when he built his first venture, a machine learning-powered trading financial company. Now he and his co-founder, Mr. Alex Musioka, and team at Viebeg are making a significant impact in improving the lives of people in Africa through the combined power of AI technology and human ingenuity. He has been a long-term passionate innovator in the field of AI, especially within machine learning. So today, our brilliant speaker, Mr. Reiter, will share his inspiring and one-of-a-kind experiences and thoughts as an internationally recognized leader at the intersection of AI in medical care and entrepreneurship. So let's give a warm welcome to Mr. Reiter. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, I'm really glad to be part of, this series of entrepreneurs, as you already said, and also research experts in AI. And I would like to tell you a bit more about myself and how it all began. I can share my screen maybe while I'm talking. 1 second. So basically, I went to college in Vienna, Austria, and I studied business administration, but I quickly saw that I wanted to also be an entrepreneur at the same time. I didn't want to only be a student, and I got very interested in technology. And then I started with arbitrage trading, also for cryptocurrencies. So back then, cryptocurrencies were coming up, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and also other markets where arbitrage was possible. And then I saw that with technology, you can be much more efficient. And I basically told my best friend, who was a mathematician, to leave college and start working with me full time on this. So, I made him my co-founder because I saw that I wouldn't have the time to work on both, on finishing my bachelor's degree and building a trading algorithm. But he was very happy to do that. He really saw the huge potential. And we hired a lot of engineers, mainly from Eastern Europe. We were just 19, 20 when we started. And it really worked out well in the beginning. And we, were making a good amount of money with our trading algorithm. And it was super exciting, to be an entrepreneur at that age, to have the freedom to travel around the world. We went to Asia, Thailand, Malaysia, Philippines, and worked from there. And then I flew back and, for an exam in college. And it was an exciting time. But after a few years, I realized that I wanted to do much more than just making money, in my life. And I was really looking for new ways of applying technology to do something good. And I got very interested in Africa. I actually did my master's degree in the Netherlands, in Groningen, also in business administration, because I always thought that, basically an MBA, always thought that business is important. To study business administration is important as an entrepreneur. You do have to understand how things are running in a company. But of course, also technology is important. So I taught myself technology, and I worked with a lot of experts, both engineering and software engineering and AI, machine learning. It was more like a hobby, but I think probably I could have also just studied computer science and then learned a lot of the MBA stuff, aside. But I chose to do the business administration, to go that path, right? So basically, when I was in Groningen doing my master's degree, I had the opportunity to come to Rwanda, to Africa, for my master thesis. And I've never really heard much about Rwanda before, only the genocide. I don't know how familiar you are with what happened here in 1994. But basically, here Rwanda has an incredible growth story and recovery story. They focused on technology. They have the vision government has the vision to build an IT hub here in Rwanda. There are a lot of initiatives. There's a thriving startup ecosystem here. So even though it's one of the smallest countries in Africa, and also, you know, very small economy, is one of the highest venture capital investments in terms of total investments in this country in startups. So it attracts a lot of ecosystem players, startup accelerators, and social entrepreneurs, first of all, and social startups and tech companies. And I immediately wanted to come here and you know, see what is happening here in Africa. So when I arrived in Rwanda, I was really overwhelmed with the way that the country is structured. I've been to other African countries before, but I've never seen such an organized, you know, organized infrastructure, such an ease of doing business. It is one of the best countries actually in the world in terms of ease of doing business. You can open a company within 10 minutes online, and everything is very supportive. So I thought, wow, this is a great country to work in, to do business in. And then I, obviously, as I mentioned before, was looking for other opportunities. And I did my master thesis, and through that, I met my co-founder now, Alex Musyoka. He's a Kenyan who's been working in the medical supplies industry for 13 years. And Alex showed me this massive problem in healthcare that a lot of hospitals, he's the guy on the right, by the way, a lot of hospitals do not have the right medical products to properly treat their patients. And when we saw this issue, right, first of all, I wanted to know, is this only in Rwanda? So we went to also Burundi, to Congo, Kenya, Uganda, and everywhere, you know, where we went, we saw the same problem, that hospitals did not have the right equipment. They were not data driven when it comes to procurement and inventory management. And, you know, they're in general not digitalized yet. So in fact, when, you know, the problem that comes through that is that every minute, 5 people are dying in the developing world, most of them in Africa, because of diseases that could be treated if the right medical products, the right medical equipment were available. And you know, we were asking ourselves, as I already mentioned, why this is the case, why things cannot be more efficient. And as I already mentioned, the main, you know, culprits for that are really poor inventory management and improper procurement. And all of that comes from the fact that they're not data driven. So they often record the inventory on paper, and they then say, okay, let me buy 5,000 face masks and 10,000 surgery gloves. Maybe we need a new ENT department. You know, we should get another X-ray machine. And everything is based on gut feeling. And with that, as you can imagine, most of you are interested in AI and data science. If you're not data driven, things are much less efficient, right? And especially here in Africa, where resources are not as available as they are in other countries, other continents. And when you procure inefficiently, then that's what they're often doing. They allocate all their budget on certain products that they believe to be important, and then they don't have any products left for any money left for other products. So in countries like Congo, where hospitals are very far away from each other, sometimes, you know, if you go to a hospital and they refer you to another hospital, you have to walk for 48 hours, for 2 days, right? Because most people can't afford a taxi to go there. And that in return reduces the probability that you want to do a checkup. You know, you want to go to a hospital for routine checkup. And in general, it really hurts the whole healthcare system, right? So when we saw this, I thought, why not making these processes more efficient with technology, with data science, right? Is another way to capture this data from hospitals. First of all, the inventory data, and then analyze, how many products they're actually consuming and doing demand prediction. So not a way to build more advanced algorithms that can predict also the equipment that you need, and to basically improve the medical supply chain. So this is when we built our procurement platform called Viebeg, comes from La Vie in French, life. So through that platform, we are collecting procurement data, any purchase that a hospital does comes through the platform. Inventory management data, hospitals are using it to track their inventory. And even more so, what we have now built, what we call our health demand simulation model, for which, by the way, we also got funding from the Gates Foundation, from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and we got a major recognition for that. So what we're doing with the data, with the inventory management data and the demand data, the procurement data, is we can of course do demand prediction. We can also, with the payment data, build our own credit scoring algorithm. So we can see which hospital is paying on time, right? When we give products some credit, we can test out how much credit we can give to each institution. Because right now it's very difficult for them to buy a product upfront, to pay upfront. But if you can give financing, especially for equipment, then you can really help this hospital improve the infrastructure, treat more patients, increase the revenue, and then with that pay you back. So you build a more sustainable model. And this is what we're doing. And on top of that, on top of predictive analytics and equipment financing through our credit scoring algorithm, we have our health demand simulation model that I just mentioned, where we're basically looking at what kind of equipment, medical equipment, is available in a certain region, right? How many hospitals are there? Which health services are they actually offering, right? So that is the health supply. And then we're looking at the demand. So how many people are living there, demographic data, right? How old are they? Which gender do they have? And then what kind of disease patterns do they have, with disease burdens, right? Basically, which sicknesses are out there? Do they suffer from malaria, from HIV? And how is that going to change over time, right? What is the population growth that is projected by the government? What is the GDP in that area right now? How is that going to change over time? So you can build very dynamic models where you can really predict, when you have enough data, what kind of diseases will be specifically in a certain region a problem, right? And which ones are not yet addressed by the healthcare providers. And then based on that, with all that data that we have, we can also not only predict that demand, but through the demand, right, we can also predict the profitability of each equipment. So we know, okay, this, for example, dental chair that we're bringing to a region with 200,000 people where there is no dental clinic available yet, will be occupied 90% of the time. And this is the average revenue that the dentist can make per hour from this population. And so with that information, you can build a profitability analysis and financial model for each equipment and also for the healthcare provider. So with that financial model, you can then offer equipment financing, right, on top of the credit scoring that we're doing. And we can also link these healthcare providers to financing partners, to banks, to impact investors, to foundations that want to donate or that maybe want to do a debt investment and want to lend this clinic capital so that they can improve the clinic. So there's a huge impact that we are creating right now, where we're serving, more than 750 healthcare providers here in the region, in Rwanda, Congo, and Kenya. And we believe that the more data we can collect, the more accurate our models will also be, and the more we can attract financing for these healthcare providers. So that's what we're doing in a nutshell, right? Through this application, we're making healthcare and products more affordable, more accessible, and we can de-risk the medical supply chain through anomaly detection in AI, right? So we can really, with the data that we have, see, okay, in a certain region now, there is a 30% increase for cholera-related products. So that might be a cholera epidemic. And then we can alert healthcare providers ahead of time and ensure that they are prepared for this potential health crisis, right? So in a nutshell, we're doing demand prediction, right, through pattern mining, pattern recognition. We're using optimized delivery routes, which is very complex here in some of the countries that we work in, where often you have certain roads that are blocked, bridges that are breaking down, you have ports that are congested, right? So there's a lot that can be improved with supply chain data. Then we can also help manufacturers to improve the production, right? That they're doing specifically for a certain region, because we know how much products are actually needed from that manufacturer. That manufacturer could be from America, from Europe, from Asia, even from Africa, and then really helping them to improve also the products that they're developing for this region with the data that we have. And on top of it, we can build contingency plans, right? To really know what are we going to do, and even AI can do that in the future with the right data. What can we do now if the port in Tanzania is congested? Then, should we get the products from Kenya? Should we get them from South Africa? Should we get them from China? With all the transactional data that we have, we can really predict what will be the best supply chain solution for this specific, purchase, for this specific need of the healthcare provider. And we've built a very robust supply chain here across East Africa, where we've connected more than 60 distributors and manufacturers with our healthcare providers through our platform. So as I mentioned, we're working now with more than 750 healthcare providers. And some of them are big hospitals, like King Faisal Hospital, the biggest one here in Rwanda. Some of them are government organizations like Rwanda National Police, Rwanda Military, which all need, of course, medical products, but also then NGOs like Partners in Health, American Refugee Committee, now called ALIGHT. So we're doing a lot in, refugee camps. We're doing a lot with aid organizations like USAID, GIZ from Germany. And then specifically, most of the customers are really small clinics that we're helping through our financing solution to grow and become maybe a medium-sized clinic, and then eventually even a large clinic or a hospital. So that is our target, right? Because there's a lot of work to be done here. And the population growth is huge in Africa. As you know, now from 1.3 billion people, Africa is expected to reach more than 2 billion people in the next 70 years. And it might be the most populated continent in the world. So with that, also the healthcare system has to grow a lot to keep up with it. And we also have 100 pharmacies. We're also looking at, improving access to medicine. It's not our core focus yet, but there is a huge problem with pharmaceuticals in Africa, with a lot of counterfeit products, a lot of low quality products, expired products. So we're planning to use also blockchain verify each product that we're bringing, and demand prediction to ensure that the pharmacies that we work with are always, you know, always ready to serve their customers, always have the right products. So yeah, that's what we're doing, right? I can tell you a bit more about the technology. Probably you have a lot of questions, but before we go into that, I wanted to tell you a bit more about my entrepreneurial journey again, and really giving you some thoughts on why I think it is very important to use technology to solve a bigger problem in this world, right? Because as I'm from Europe, I've seen that a lot of people are using maybe technology to solve very, very small problems, right? And there's so big problems out there, especially in the developing world, right? Emerging markets, in Africa, in Southeast Asia, Latin America, where I think that technology can make a huge difference. And as already mentioned, for me personally, it has been a very fulfilling journey to have this kind of transformation from a more money-driven entrepreneur, right, coming from the trading industry, finance industry, to a social entrepreneur using technology to improve healthcare here. And that is a very difficult step that you have to take, I think, when you take it, because obviously funding might not be as big as it is in Europe, in the US, if you work in fintech. So it's always a struggle to raise more capital. You might have to work with people that do not yet have the educational background that you need. So you really need to do a lot of capacity building, training a lot of people. And then on top of that, you're facing a lot of challenges, right? With technology adoption, you have to explain to people, for example, in my case, in Sub-Saharan Africa, explain to hospitals why they should become more data-driven, right? You have to explain technology in a way that they understand it. And then you have to, at the same time, deal with wars. We're working in Congo, in Eastern Congo, where there's a civil war, or at least conflict with all the armed militias, and you might have a perfect tech solution, but at the end of the day, you still can't get your product to a certain region because maybe there is now a war, or it's too dangerous to go there. So all these challenges make it very complex and stressful, but personally, I think also at the same time very rewarding. Sorry, because if you have a purpose in life, it gives you a lot of energy, and it is very fulfilling to see how the team is growing. For example, here on the left, you see our biomedical engineers, which we are sending to Europe, to Asia for trainings. And they are then in return teaching other local biomedical engineers when they have learned. So we're bringing a lot of knowledge here. We're working with the German government that is funding AI training programs here in Africa, and we hire specifically women for our tech team. We try to hire as many women as possible through these programs, so that those are women that might not have any other opportunities otherwise, to work in tech, because there are a lot of stereotypes out there. And then when you're an entrepreneur here, you can, as I mentioned, make a huge difference when you decide to work with specific groups of people, and you're patient enough to give them time to develop, and then you grow with them and your company grows with them. So that's something that I wanted to mention as a first step, first part of being a social entrepreneur. And then you also, especially when you're young like me, you can learn a lot from the people that you can work with, right? So it opens up a lot of doors, because there are not that many social entrepreneurs that decide to come to Africa and to work here bring technology to address local problems. And then you can work with the Gates Foundation, you can work with Google, you can work with Amazon. They all have programs. We were so lucky to have to be part of a very sophisticated accelerator program, Korea AI in healthcare. We were the first African company to take part in that program, and I learned a lot. So I think personally, not only was it a very fulfilling journey, but I learned so much by working with people that people that also want to solve the same problem and that are coming from a different cultural background and also have a different knowledge. And then on top of that, we have huge opportunities, I think, because if you're looking at Africa, right, and the population growth, the economic growth, the data that we are collecting, most companies are not collecting that yet. And that's why big pharmaceutical companies, big tech companies are so interested in investing in our company and partnering with our company. And once you build the right algorithms and the right tech solution, the right demand prediction, you really know which products are needed, credit scoring, things that are not yet available, and might be so difficult to imagine that for you, right? But it is really the case. And once you have this technology that other people don't have, other companies don't have, then you can really become a unicorn. So that is also our objective, to become a unicorn, but as a social enterprise. So yeah, that's an overview basically of Viebeg and of my journey as an entrepreneur and why I'm doing what I'm doing and why I believe it's the right thing to do. And now I would love to to answer some of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reiter, for the inspiring look into sort of the journey that you've really gone through in order to get where you are now, in order to make the really difficult decision, I think, to go all the way from a fintech innovator in where you came from and all the way over to Rwanda and Africa. I think definitely it's a journey to really think about, and also taking a look into what you guys are doing at Viebeg, specifically with the technologies that you guys are using to really enable the medical supply chain in Africa in order to provide access to these areas really that don't necessarily have access to what we typically see as like supplies, for instance, not even just healthcare, looking at masks, surgical supplies, dental care, so on and so forth. I think really essential things that we're looking at that that really Viebeg and you yourself have dedicated yourselves to helping enable. So definitely super inspiring journey for our audience to hear from, especially on the aspect of social entrepreneurship. So thank you, Mr. Reiter, for that. And so now I think moving on to Q&A for participants who may have questions for Mr. Reiter regarding his journey, or maybe if you want to hear more specifically about the AI that he and his company are using to really enable this process. I've just resent the Slido link for those who may have missed it. But otherwise, you can, so the Slido link has been sent again in the chat. And if you have questions, you can send through the Q&A. Otherwise, let me go through. I actually have a question first for you, Mr. Reiter, just to kick things off, if you don't mind.
Sure.
What do you think specifically, what do you think, you've talked about sort of aspects of the medical supply chain, and I'm wondering what aspect do you think has been the most difficult in sort of providing access to throughout your experience?
Yeah, I think the hardest thing for hospitals, as I mentioned, is really knowing which quantities they should procure. procure, right? How many patients they're going to have and what these patients are going to be treated with or for, right? And that makes it even harder for medical importers, right? Distribution companies to know which products they should bring and how many they should bring. So demand prediction is really difficult, in AI here, because there's a lack of data, and also because the market is very siloed. So there are many different players. There are a lot of briefcase companies, basically people who are coming brokers that are just buying something and selling something, and not a lot of professional companies that are collecting all this information and then using technology to do demand prediction, right? So I think that's the hardest part of it. And then there's a second step, financing, right? To access capital to invest in healthcare. And that also has something to do with a lack of data, right? Because a lot of the healthcare providers can't really show how many patients they're treating. Many are not using an EMR, an electronic medical record, software. So they don't have any information that they can even provide. And then the banks also don't really give loans to these providers.
Great, thank you so much. I in particular really liked getting to know what you do for equity and inclusion within your company, Viebeg. And I just want to know, what's the biggest barrier that you've faced in trying to get your projects through and for them to make some real impact?
So just said I understood you correctly. For inclusion, you mean gender inclusion, equity inclusion?
Yes, just everything. I really appreciated that, and I really thought that was wonderful about your organization.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so unfortunately, there's a huge gender gap here when it comes to technology, right? A lot of women, they don't have the same opportunities here. Basically, the families think that a woman should be at home, she should become a housewife and not go into tech. And so we saw that problem, we identified that problem, and we thought we should address it, right? And so together with other stakeholders, with government institutions, with tech programs, we're able to first of all train these women, and turn them into junior engineers, junior data scientists, and then constantly build their capacity and really turn them into senior data scientists, which we have done now. So we have 3 more senior data scientists, I would say, here in Rwanda, and building many more. And the good thing is that once they worked in our company, they have they basically have a good CV that allows them to also work for other companies. So it's much bigger than just helping a few women, but we really want to show the whole ecosystem that they're welcome to work with us. They can come to do internships, they can gain working experience, and we're here to support them. So that's one part, but we also do that for other health services. We do that for example, dentists that we're training, female dentists. We're doing that for female biomedical engineers. So in general, we have a very strong, target to achieve full gender inclusion. One of our venture capital investors, they're called Beyond Capital Ventures. They're a woman-led VC, and they focus on emerging markets, and they very much drive this inclusion in our company. Yeah. And also I would like to mention, that when it comes to equipment financing and female owners of clinics, we also have a lot of programs that are promoting women in healthcare. So we have seen that in microfinance, women tend to pay back loans more often than men in this region. So we are actively trying to finance women-owned clinics, because we have seen with the data that we have that they actually have a better credit score. So this is something that a lot of banks here are not capturing yet, but we can show them that data, and that in return enables more women to become an entrepreneur in healthcare.
I actually think it's really interesting and also inspiring as well to see that your company is not only sort of enabling accessibility on the front of the medical supply chain, but also in the aspect of the opportunities that you guys are presenting to others, specifically women in this case. I think diversity, especially within the field of AI, is especially important because it's going to be such a large sector now and also in the future. And to really have the diversity within the voices that can be heard within that sector and really enabling people to also find their own opportunities is, I think, definitely something that more people need to be doing. So, but also sort of going into the next question, we have a question from the audience. So Anonymous is asking, so more about the technology that you guys are using at Viebeg to actually to enable these things and to make your work happen. So what kinds of technology are in place in order to make the hospitals more data-driven?
Yeah, so basically we, as I mentioned, we have our procurement platform, which works mainly, which is mainly a web app, but we're now building a mobile app too. And we already have mobile ordering for them that works very well. On mobile phones, we can also in the future, what we want to do now, what we're currently doing is we're integrating EMR softwares, right? So electronic medical records. With that, we will be able to also capture more patient data. We already have a few partnerships, we already piloted it. And we are even planning to maybe build a full inclusive hospital management system. So that would include, procurement, and it would include an EMR, and it might include other, other solutions, like for example, accounting, anything else that a hospital would need. So that's the first step, right? And then what is probably more interesting here for the audience is that we not only are linking manufacturers of medical equipment to hospitals, but we also envision ourselves to be a platform that links AI solutions or tech solutions to these hospitals, right? So we are providing a lot of medical equipment, and that equipment, can, if you have, for example, autonomous disease detection, right? So certain applications in AI in healthcare that can detect diseases with, when you show them, when you have an X-ray image, or any kind of machine, diagnostic machine, for example, hematology analyzers. I don't want to go too much into details, but any healthcare practitioner could use technology to improve their decision making, right? So we want to bring that technology to Africa. We already have the equipment and we want to fully integrate it. And then we can help our customers, our hospitals, to identify which technology would be beneficial for them, where they lack experts and where technology can support the staff in that specific hospital. And then on top of that, we're thinking about very innovative solutions. So remote diagnostics is a big issue here, or a big opportunity, I would say. Think of Congo, where hospitals, as I mentioned, are very far away from each other. And there are very innovative solutions also with AI, where you have, for example, glasses, and you can see what the surgeon is doing, right? And it can even help the surgeon see, with object recognition, where the issue lies, and you can then communicate to an expert remotely, or in the future maybe technology can fully do that job. There are a lot of very interesting technologies that we want to bring to Africa, but of course, everything takes time, right? and a lot of the advanced technology that is being tested right now in the West or also in China is not yet affordable, right? I've seen last time there's even an AI dentist already, for example, right? So you can get treated by a computer, so to say. And I think that would take time until, you know, people here in more remote areas in Africa would, first of all, be able to afford that. And then secondly, would feel comfortable getting such a treatment. But that is our vision, to become a platform not only for medical products, but also for technology. And then really identifying which technology is needed based on the data that we collect through the EMR, through the procurement platform, and additional data sources.
Great, thank you so much. That was very informative, and I'm sure our audience really appreciated that answer. And actually, another audience member asked, anonymous asked, as a high schooler, which programming languages or technologies should I learn to become an AI specialist like you?
Well, I think Python, right, is very important. And once you are very good in Python, then you can use more advanced frameworks. So I would recommend actually on Coursera a course called Machine Learning from Stanford University. It gives you the, you know, better understanding how machine learning actually works and how the math works behind it. But if you are very good in Python, then I think you can already do most of the data science work, right? And then from there you can use specific frameworks that, you know, really that are used in the field that you want to work in, right? So TensorFlow and, you know, a lot of different libraries you can use, frameworks you can use. But I would say start with Python, and I do think that Coursera is a good platform to learn. I learned a lot on Coursera. I also used other platforms. And then personally, I enjoyed working with other people and developed, you know, certain applications when I was younger with other people, and you know, by interacting with them, learning from them, it really helped me, you know, since I did not learn this in college. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, where would you say you were able to find these other people that you were able to collaborate on these projects with?
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky that my brother is a data scientist, so he worked at eBay in the Silicon Valley, and so from a very early age, I got connected to these people. And for example, the director of data science, his former boss, actually worked at our company as a CTO. So he really helped us build a lot of the technology. He connected us to a lot of accelerator programs. But if you do not know anyone in this field, then I think if you're looking at online communities, you know, you can meet many people. So first of all, I would recommend Meetup. It depends on the country that you're in, but normally in Europe or in the US, you can go to a Meetup event. I'm sure in China there are also similar platforms and even Meetup events. And there you can meet people physically. And if you don't want to go out to meet people physically, then you can use forums and even Coursera, the community, you know, tech platforms where you learn. Yeah.
Definitely. I think good recommendation for Coursera. I know there are some courses on there that are definitely pretty good for people just getting into artificial intelligence. Do you think, as a novice and a beginner, do you think those courses on Coursera were more manageable for you just coming into artificial intelligence? Like, do you think they were overwhelming in any ways? Because I know there are some courses that do require prerequisites.
Yeah, I did a lot of Python courses before. I also did front end development before, you know, back end development, and then I got into machine learning, right? And I also had a decent math background because of trading, and even at the university I had to take, certain math courses. So I think you should have a knowledge in mathematics, right? There are also courses on math for machine learning, even on Coursera, and some of them are really good for Imperial College, for example. And I would definitely recommend that. So I think it's actually more important to understand how AI works, how the algorithms work, than knowing, at least as an entrepreneur, than being able to apply it and to program it yourself, right? Because once you understand how AI is trying to optimize the predictions, with gradient descent and all these, algorithms, then you better understand what kind of technology you need, what kind of data you need to, what kind of technology you need to capture that data, and what kind of data you need for the algorithm, right? And you also better understand how you can use AI, right? For which problem can you use it, and to which extent can you use it? So I would really recommend trying to understand the math behind algorithms.
All right, thank you. And another question, I remember that you talked about the vision for Viebeg in the future. So we were wondering if you could discuss any ongoing or future projects that you're particularly excited about and how they might impact healthcare in the coming years.
Yes, so we actually raised more than 1 million. We just haven't announced it. We're currently closing our next funding round, and we're growing. And what we want to do now, as I mentioned, is we want to include more tech solutions in our platform to help with diagnostics, right? To help healthcare providers really do their job, right? But with using advanced technology, AI, autonomous disease detection. We're doing a lot of online trainings, remote diagnostics, as I said. So really building the company in a way that it's more tech driven than logistics driven. That is a main part that we're working on. And one way of doing that is also training our engineers, right? Training our team and raising awareness on technology within our communities, right? So people have to really understand what is going on in health tech, in technology in general, and how technology works and how they can use it to improve their services that they're providing to their patients.
Definitely. And I think going off of that, going off of the vision you have for Viebeg, I think just also talking about on the subject of the future, I'm actually wondering, we have someone asking if do you think if you could talk about how the future of the medical supply problem or that might evolve in Africa?
Yeah, I think right now, bigger and bigger players are interested in Africa, right? So a lot of the big pharmaceutical companies that are already data-driven, are already very efficient, right? They are entering the African market. And there are also a lot of startups coming up in venture capital investments, and healthcare are doubling every year, right? So the VC space in Africa is growing very fast. I think the fastest growing in the world, right? It's still very small, I think around $4 to $5 billion. Compared to the US, very small. But again, with this kind of growth and the population growth, the economic growth, I think we will soon see Africa catch up with the rest of the world in terms of technology adoption. You also see how Africa leapfrogged, when it comes to leapfrog innovation, when it comes to mobile money, right? So in Kenya, Kenya was, I think, the first country where they started to do payments with phones. And I think that a lot of African countries, especially countries like Rwanda, where they're really trying to empower innovation and embrace it and implement it in every aspect, that they can leapfrog a lot of technology innovations that are that have been made in Europe or in the West and advanced economies. Yeah, so in a nutshell, I think within the next 10 years, we will see a much more data-driven healthcare supply chain and a healthcare system in general.
All right, thank you. Just kind of piggybacking off of that, kind of like in 10 years, we were wondering right now, is it harder to access AI engineers and programmers in Rwanda compared to perhaps Europe and the US? And how do you deal with that issue?
Yeah, I think it's definitely harder to access experienced engineers, right? As I mentioned, they are coming up, but there are also a lot of people that are leaving the continent, unfortunately, right? And more people are working remotely for Google, for other tech companies, and many tech companies are entering Africa right now. I don't know if you're familiar with Andela. Andela is a company that is building building software engineers in Africa. So ideally, building people from a junior engineer to a senior software engineer, and then connecting them to top tech companies like Facebook, Google. And I think they got $200 million in funding. So it's a major startup in Africa, given a unicorn. And they are improving the tech ecosystem a lot, right? So it is becoming easier to find people that have a background in machine learning, in software engineering, but it is not easy to find people that have a certain level, that you need as a startup, right? So hopefully within the next 5 years, it will be much easier. Since we started Viebeg 5 years ago, right? Since we started Viebeg, we've already seen a lot of improvements, and we are already able to hire more and more people in Africa, and also connect Africans to other companies locally.
All right, thank you. And just a couple more questions. I was wondering, I think one thing that's been on the top of our minds for like the past couple of weeks or like months is just new AI tech, like cutting edge tech, like ChatGPT. And how might this like help affect Viebeg in the future?
Yes, so I'm spending a lot of time, wondering whether these AI solutions, specifically ChatGPT, will be a problem or will be, supporting a solution for us. But I think we actually can leverage a lot from these solutions, right? Because we are working in a field, in supply chain, where I think that's not the main thing that they are right now focusing on, right? I mean, it requires a lot of infrastructure. It requires a lot of human resource. So it's not, like it does not really threaten our business as much as it threatens maybe a teacher or other jobs, right? But of course, if technology keeps on improving and players like Amazon are coming in with all their infrastructure, then it is a big problem. But this is why we also are aware of the pace in technology, and this is why we keep raising more capital, keep growing, and keep investing in technology and data that maybe some of these companies like Google are not yet collecting, right? Healthcare data, supply chain data in Congo. We are one of the very few companies that are collecting this data right now, and I think that can be a major advantage.
Definitely. I think on the topic of data, it's come up a lot, even in past talks for Youth AI Lab, where data has been a subject of importance, because that's really how we data is a way we can really understand what's happening and really thinking of solutions of how we can approach these issues that we're seeing, see trends, so on and so forth. But I think another, just going through, since we're a bit over time right now, thank you, Mr. Reiter, for your time. But we have one last question before we close out for the day or evening, wherever everyone is tuning in from. So one question that I have on the behalf of all students or those who are just getting into artificial intelligence that might be in the Zoom or even watching the recording, is that I'm wondering, do you have any last words of advice or things that you might want to share to someone for students who are trying to get into artificial intelligence? Like, where should they begin? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the first step is really having the right motivation. You can learn AI or technology, software engineering, because you want to have a safe job and you want to make money, have a decent salary. And all of that obviously are valid points, but I think it's even a much bigger motivation when you find a purpose, what you want to use that technology for, right? So if, for example, you're interested in cars, you can see how AI can help with, can lead to autonomous driving, right? And then you might get interested in that, and you're much more motivated to learn and understand AI and understand technology, right? How does it work? You're not just doing it because you have to know it to get a certain job, but you're learning it so that you can make a difference. You can build something, right? So that's the motivation, right? To really find a purpose, what you want to use the technology for, and link this technology, link AI to your interests, right? Because I think AI can be applied almost in everything nowadays. Whether you like sports and you want to include it there, whether you like dancing, whatever it is, right? That's the beauty of it. So that's the first step. And then when where you should start, I think, as I mentioned, is really Python, right? To have a solid background in programming in general, and a solid background in math, how it works. And then once you're there, I think once you have this programming background, the math background, then I would really suggest to take a course where you're learning all the major algorithms, right? And all the major topics of AI, right? So how does gradient descent work, right? You're starting there, then you're going to NLP, right? Natural language processing, you're going to all these different topics where you're learning, the basics, because I think it is important for you even to identify what you want to do in your career. Nowadays, it's not enough to be just a machine learning engineer. If you really want to work for a top company, be very specialized as well, right? And have experience in that and have built projects in that specific area. So once you know the different areas and you identify what you really like, then you can go deep and really learn everything and then apply everything. So that if you build your own small projects, first of all, if you're entrepreneurial, you can try to make it a startup, right? But even if that's not the case, you can always show it when you apply for a job, and then you should obviously do a job in that field where you're getting the right experience and you can work with top people that are really teaching you a lot of things, and then hopefully you can be a game changer in AI.
And I really have to agree, because I think really taking away the fact that AI is genuinely just such a multifaceted field, right? You could have so many unique and diverse interests, and you can still find an application that would still interest you and you would be able to pursue it. And I really think, like, the fact that just laying a foundation first and really being able to branch off the possibilities from there is something that's really important. And the fact that there are so many possibilities you can explore, it's just, I think, part of the beauty of this field, really. Like whether you're more on the coding side or you believe yourself to be someone who's more interested in the business aspect, right? Or maybe even social entrepreneurship, like Mr. Reiter himself, who has gone to Rwanda. And I really think that this talk for me has been a very eye-opening experience for myself, and I'm sure for the rest of the audience as well, because just really getting to see just AI as well as access to medical care, healthcare, intertwined with entrepreneurship, and as well as sort of in developing countries, right? Like for instance, places in Africa, really getting to see these things in a new way, in a new light. And I really hope that through the platform of Youth AI Lab and other platforms, that more youth hear about you and Viebeg, because I really think that to be able to get inspired and also to inspire more youth to get involved in our world today, to get more brilliant people such as yourself to become involved in the field as a social AI entrepreneur, really just building a better world together with the help of human ingenuity as well as AI, artificial intelligence. I think that's, if we had more people such as yourself, I think the world, just these just accessibility issues, so on and so forth, we'd really be able to improve conditions for a lot of people who are out there. So thank you so much for sharing your story as well as the advice you've given today. Definitely very invaluable takeaways for our audience. And on behalf of all of our Youth AI Lab audiences on the Zoom, as well as later on our YouTube, as well as our organizing team, we'd like to thank you wholeheartedly for your fantastic talk and the Q&A and the valuable time you've spent with us tonight. I know we've gone over time, so definitely really appreciate your time and effort to share all of this with us. Thank you, Mr. Reiter.
Thank you very much for having me.
Of course. And for all audience members here today in the Zoom, thank you so much for joining us today for our April talk. And as always, if we don't have details for our next talk out yet, but if you want to keep on up to date with that for our youth speaker series for the next one, please register on our website at youthai.org for more information, or follow us on our Eventbrite. And if you want to watch the replay of our talk, all of that will be shared later on our YouTube channel. The streaming replay will be up there, and you are welcome to rewatch it or share with your friends as well. If you know anyone who's also interested in getting into AI, it'd be a really wonderful opportunity as well. So, and if you want to watch our past replays as well, you can have access to them on our YouTube channel. The link is also in the chat. But thank you everyone for coming today. Thank you for your time, and I hope everyone learned just as much as we did today. And thank you, Mr. Reiter, as always, for coming and spending your precious time to share these with us. And thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day wherever you are. And we hope to see you at our next talk. Thank you.